The 2021 May Virtual Southern Conference. Creating Confidence, Tami Metheny.
Tami Metheny is owner of Refuse to Lose Coaching. She's a mental game coach that helps build confidence and mental skills with athletes and non-athletes alike. She has a passion for mental skills because although she was a standout athlete in high school and in college, she struggled with her confidence in performing. And despite having a degree in psychology and sports administration, it wasn't until she became a coach at University of South Carolina Upstate that she developed her system for helping everyone improve their skills. So I give you Tami.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here today. And as I bring up my screen, I first would like to thank Bill Riddle. I literally would not be here without him. He found me when I was in grad school, and I was working behind the desk at a tennis shop. And he had learned that I was a college tennis player and encouraged me and got me back out on the tennis court and kept pushing me to strive for more and to better myself, which led to me becoming a teaching pro. I got certified, and that led to becoming a Division I collegiate coach for men and women's tennis, and then ultimately led to what I do now, mental game coaching. So Bill's words of encouragement and pushing me to be my best is ultimately why I'm here now. So thank you, Bill. And that leads me into what I want to talk about today. Often we don't realize the power of our words and our encouragement on those that we're teaching and coaching. And so through my experiences, I want to share some things that I have found to be very helpful in helping us instill confidence in others. And the first that I have learned that is most important is talk the talk. And that is all of the words and thoughts that we have throughout a day. Now, I'm going to explain this twofold. First of all, how you can help your clients and players in teaching them better self-talk, but also how your talk impacts them. And I'm going to start with a short story. I believe in the power of stories and getting messages across, but it's also become my motto in life. And it's an African folktale called This Is Good. There was an African king, and he had his best friend that went with him wherever they went, because the best friend would remind him, this is good. It could be the worst day in the world, but the best friend would remind him, hey, this is good because. So they went hunting one day, and the best friend loads the rifle for the king. Well, it backfires and blows the king's thumb off. The king is irate and throws his best friend in jail. All the way to the jail, and while he's in jail, the best friend says, this is good, over and over and over. Other guys in jail were like, you're an idiot. This isn't good. Your best friend just threw you in jail. No, this is good. Well, in the meantime, he's been in jail for 1.5 years, and the king goes out on another hunting party. Well, they're captured by a band of cannibals, and the cannibals are going to kill them and eat them one by one. But they were extremely superstitious, and they did not believe in killing or eating anything that wasn't whole. They saw that the king did not have a thumb, so they released him and freed him. And he was like, oh my gosh, my best friend saved my life. And he rushes back to the jail, gets down on his knees, and begs for forgiveness. Please, 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 please forgive me to his best friend. The best friend, of course, says, this is good. The king said, I know it was good for me, you saved my life, but I've wasted 1.5 years of your life. And the best friend was like, no, this is good. For you see, if I had been with you, I could have been killed and eaten. Now, when I heard that story about 15 years ago, it just resonated with me on so many different levels. This best friend doesn't see anything as good or bad. He sees it for what it is, and he waits and keeps his mind and brain mentally alive for something better to happen. Maybe it's different, but yet better in the long run. And so I started thinking of how do I apply this to athletes and helping them grow and develop. And hopefully the story of the king is a lot more dramatic than things that we have to deal with. but what is good about losing the first set? What is good about losing a match? What is good about an injury? And once we can help our clients and our athletes start to find what is good about that, it shifts their thoughts to things that are going to help them be better in the long run. If it's an injury and we're dwelling on the injury, then we're not getting better at that time. If we're dwelling on how bad our backhand is during a match, then what we focus on grows, and it's going to grow and prevent us from focusing on what we can do. So I love that story. We're going to kick it off with that story and encouraging you to help your clients start developing this is good attitude and finding what is good or productive. And that leads me to the next thing with Talk the Talk. I am a firm believer in all of our talk to ourselves and to others should be what I call P squared, positive or productive self-talk. I'm not one of these that believes everything is positive. And when I played, if I had lost or I hit a bad shot and you were to tell me, hey, it's okay, I probably would have been irritated. I know I would have been irritated because no, it's not okay. But we can have productive thoughts instead of beating ourselves up with what we did wrong. Productive thought of what we're going to do for the next shot, the next set, the next match. So encouraging your clients, your athletes to have positive or productive self-talk, but making sure when you're working with them, you are doing the same with your talk to them. The next thing under Talk the Talk is learning to talk to yourself versus listen to yourself. And when we listen to ourselves, we kind of let our brains just run wild. And we hear how tired we are, or we hear how this is impossible, or we hear how we don't feel like doing something. But when we talk to ourselves, we're planting the seeds for what we want to happen. An example, maybe I'm playing a tennis match and I'm listening to myself. Don't double fault here. But by talking to myself, I change it to what I want to happen. This is where I'm going to serve. So it's a small shift in our talk, but talk versus listen. The last piece that I want to give you with Talk the Talk, before I get to this number, is what I call 5 1s. 5-1. And that's after every practice, every match, I'm encouraging my clients, my players, to find 5 specific things they did well and 1 thing that they want to work on moving forward for the next day, the next match. And when I was coming through, that was inverse for me. I mean, I was lucky if I could find 1 positive because my mind was so focused on I needed to improve. So that's I needed to pick my game apart. But studies are showing that, again, what you focus on grows. So when we focus more on what we're doing well and then picking 1 thing to work at, that's where the most growth occurs. And you may have heard that in relationships, 5-to-1 positive ratio to negative comments. But the same goes with growing our game. And when you're working with a tennis player early on a stroke, you're giving them 1 thing to think about so their brain's not overloaded. And that's the same with what we want to do with the mental game. So I would encourage having your athletes, your tennis players, keeping a journal. That studies show writing things down make it even more powerful, but a 5-to-1 ratio on what they're doing well. When I coach tennis, after every match, every player would text that to me. 5 things they did well, 1 thing they want to work on to get better for the next match. So those are just a few ideas of Talk the Talk, but our talk to ourselves and how we talk to those that we're leading is one of the most powerful forces that there is. The second step that I've identified in taking control of our confidence is what I call walk the walk. And that's our body language, how we carry ourselves and our face expressions. I have a picture of a bulletin board here, a billboard here, because our body language is a walking billboard to everyone that sees us. So that's very important on the tennis court. And, I think Nadal is excellent at projecting what he wants his opponent to see. You know, growing up, I idolized Chris Evert because she was just so stone-faced. You didn't know if she was winning or losing. And I love handling the losing part that way. You're not giving away any energy or giving your opponent confidence. But more importantly, our body language sends a message to ourselves, to our brain. And I like to think of body language and walk the walk and talk the talk as doubles partners. They're teammates. And when I carry myself in a confident way, it's sending positive, productive messages to my brain. When I start to slump because I double faulted or made a mistake, then I'm sending negative messages to my brain. So they go hand in hand. And once we recognize and help our clients understand, they can create any emotion that they want with their walk and their talk. So talk the talk and walk the walk. Additionally, when we're teaching or coaching, how we present ourselves to what our clients and players are doing is extremely important. When I work with tennis players, often coaches and parents, they are glued in. And when they make a mistake, their eyes are finding you. And so it's important for us not to make them feel worse or to try to give them encouragement. And Pete Carroll, the successful coach for Seattle NFL team, he said that the best coaches during competition are either poker players or the best cheerleaders. And so thinking about the impact our body language has on those that we're trying to help. And the number I want to share with you here is 93%. 93% of our communication to others and ourselves comes from our body language, our face expressions, and our tone. So that's very impactful how you're carrying yourself and the messages that it's sending to your brain and to others. The third phase of helping ourselves establish this baseline of confidence is see it, be it. And I'm going to stop and share another story. You can tell I love to share stories. My clients call it Tami time. But to give the impact of how important it is how we see ourselves. And I just recently heard this story about 10 days ago on a podcast, and I've been sharing it with everyone I can because it's so useful in getting this point across. But there was a junior in high school, and he was flunking about every single class that he was in. And he came from a challenging environment. His single mom, and she had to work 3 jobs just to keep them afloat. She was rarely around, and he was hanging out with the wrong crowd, half the time not going to class. And he just thought, I'll never be successful. I mean, this is just my circumstances. Well, his mom comes home one day and she says, I have one thing to ask you. Please take the SAT. And he kind of laughed and said, why? That'll be a waste of time and money. And she said, no, please just take the SAT. He said, fine, I'll do it, but you're wasting your money. He goes and takes the test, doesn't think anything about it. Several weeks later, he gets his test score back. He opens it up and he's in shock. He made it 1480. 1600 is the highest you can score. So a 1480 is knocking it out of the ballpark. And he's just in shock. And his mom grabs it and looks at it just to make sure. And she's like, oh my gosh, son, did you cheat? And he's like, no, Mom, I promise. He said, I thought about it, but I didn't know how to cheat once I was in that room. Well, anyway, it started to change his life. And he started seeing himself as this intelligent guy. He started going to class, sitting in the front of the class, asking questions. And because his behavior changed, the behavior to the teachers changed to him. And they started engaging him more, interacting, expecting more from him. He was able to get his grades up and went to a community college for his first semester. He was then able to transfer to a 4-year school, graduated, then went on to Ivy League school for graduate school. Here's a young man about to flunk out as a junior, And now he's at an Ivy League school. Graduates, he becomes a successful magazine entrepreneur, millionaire, and living the life. And he gets a letter. It's 15 years after he took the SAT. And it's from the Princeton Review Board, who puts on the SAT. He opens it up, and inside it said, every 12 to 15 years, we review our procedures. And we have found that we made a mistake. And we sent the wrong scores to 13 different people. You were one of them. You really only made a 740. And he just kind of laughed because now it didn't matter. But he started changing the way he saw himself just because he received a false score. And because he saw himself in a different light, it changed his behavior and changed his life. So when I heard this story, I'm like, oh my gosh, if we could get every tennis player to start seeing themselves in a different light, how much better could they be? How much happier, how much more confident would they be? So one of the first exercises that I have my clients do is, how do you see yourself? And I have a picture of one of my dogs, and this is a 10-pound little baby, but she thinks she's gigantic and she thinks she's just sitting in this extremely oversized chair. But she doesn't see herself as a small dog. And again, I thought, well, what would happen if we could get tennis players to see themselves in a different way? And so the first exercise I do under See It, Be It is have my athletes, my clients, start to write out what their confident self looks like. And, I might have to work with them a little bit to get that description down, but start having discussions. What do you at your best look like? Or what do you see yourself capable of? And getting that on a note card, on a card that they can carry, having them read that every morning. So we're planting those seeds in their brain of that's what they're striving to look like. Having them read it before they go to a clinic or they go to practice or a tournament. Just starting to try to get that image to come alive. So a powerful exercise for you to do with your clients. The second step for See It, Be It is having a clear vision. I think as coaches and teachers, we need to help our clients and our players develop the vision of where do they want to go. And then once they have that vision, it really gives them the power and confidence to start seeing that through. I think too often people show up on the tennis courts and are not really sure where they want to go with it. So having some conversations of helping them create that vision. And the last thing I want to talk under See It, Be It is the power of visualization. And that's visualizing yourself as a confident athlete, but also getting reps in and seeing yourself right before you serve or playing some points in your head before a tournament. Now, I want to take time here to stop and say that it is very important that we also visualize negative things, adversity happening. And I know people say, wait a minute, Tami, you said to be P squared, positive or productive. But this is being productive. Because when I ask clients when I first start working with them, hey, do you visualize? Well, yeah, but sometimes it makes me more nervous or it increases my expectations. And when I talk with them in depth, I find out they're only seeing themselves being this amazing tennis player, which is fine. But we also need to visualize having that double fault or our forehand not working like we want it to for that match. These things are going to happen. Oh, and definitely visualizing a bad call from your opponent. But again, those things will happen. So we prepare ourselves by planning ahead and seeing our response and knowing that we can overcome it and how we're going to overcome it. So that's part of the visualization that I ask my clients to start doing. Visualizing the good, visualizing the bad, and seeing yourself overcome it. But I've really been on visualization even more than normal this year during COVID, because when you can't play with COVID or an injury or weather, visualization is a great way to keep your mind and body as in tuned as it can. And studies have shown that every 3 visual reps that we get, it equals 1 physical rep. So while it's not as strong as the physical work, we still have to put in the physical work. But it still has its place in helping us stay ready to go. And then when you put the 2 together, then you're really going to see some growth in your game and in the confidence. And the last step is preparation. And it's really hard to be confident when you haven't put in the work. And I want to make sure, though, that we realize it's not just the physical work. It's putting in the emotional work. It's putting in the technical part of it, the mental, physical, and equipment. The only thing I'll say about equipment is that seems so minor, but it's teaching your tennis players to show up with all the equipment they need, preparing ahead with their rackets, with food, with drink, with extra clothes. And again, that seems minor, but when you know you've taken care of everything you can ahead of time, it's just one less challenge, adversity, and it just helps settle you down a little bit more. I was also a swimmer as well as a tennis player growing up, and I happened to show up at a very large, big swim meet without my bathing suit. Now, you talk about lack of confidence. I luckily had a teammate that let me wear hers after she had already warmed up and been in the water. Now, putting on a cold swimsuit that's one size too small for me did not lead to me being in the best state to perform. I say that jokingly, but it was true. It did happen, but it just tells you the importance of making sure that we have everything prepared. I want to spend the rest of this time now talking about the mental prep. We all know we have to put in the physical prep, and the mental prep is just as important. And what I like to challenge my clients to do is show up how you need to be versus how you feel. And as coaches and teachers, we need to do the same. But I see athletes and tennis players show up. They've had a great day at work or in class. Things are going well. They show up in a good mood, and everything just seems so effortless. Or they've had a bad day, didn't get much sleep, had a fight with somebody important in their life, work went bad, and they carry that onto the tennis court. So I think it's important that we have a transition of getting ourselves mentally ready to show up how we need to be. And as coaches and teachers, that's important too. So again, this is twofold for you as well as for your clients. And what I like to use, the activity I like to use to help us make that transition is what I call a mental warm-up. And if I were to ask tennis players how confident they would be to show up to play a match or even practice, and they weren't allowed to stretch, move their body, touch a racket, touch a ball. They just had to get out of the car, boom, first point. Very few people would be confident. But yet that's often what we do with our brains. We just show up, get out of the car, get out of the van, and boom, we go. So having that little time to mentally warm up as we physically warm up or right before. And I'm going to share an acronym that I use just as an example. And I don't think everyone has to use this exact one, but it gives you a good outline of how to develop a mental routine. And the most important thing is making sure you do it consistently. But my acronym is BRAVE. And so the B stands for breathing. Just taking a few seconds, even a minute, to blow out any frustration, negativity, anxiety that you're carrying from the day or that you're feeling leading into tennis. And then breathing in confidence. So breathing out the negativity, breathing in the positivity. And the R stands for recognize. I want to recognize 2 things. Where's my body language? Oh, okay, I'm slumped down or I'm not in a good pose. All right, I'm getting big. I'm being big and changing my body language. And the second thing is our self-talk. Oh, I'm starting to have some what ifs or some question marks. All right, I'm changing it to what I want to happen. And I'm feeding my brain confidence and positivity. The A is for am, an I am statement or affirmation. I prefer to say I am and having my clients write out I am statements. I am going to be confident. I am going to be confident with my second serve. Maybe something that maybe you're not as confident about, you're saying it over and over and over. I am going to talk to my doubles partner. Again, no right or wrong, but something that's going to help feed you for what you need there. And the V is for visualization. And what we just discussed of seeing yourself as that confident athlete and then running through a couple points in your head, seeing some challenges that may arise and how you're going to overcome it. And lastly, visualizing how you're going to feel once you are done and having that image in your head. And then last is the E for energy. And one of the most powerful things that I have learned in recent years is that I can create the energy I need at any one given time. Now, if I haven't slept or eaten right, I can't sustain it. But let's just go with I've gotten a decent night's sleep and I've eaten right. I can, again, in a moment, if I need to change my energy, I can. And that happens through our talk and our walk, our body language and our self-talk. And when I was playing and I would need energy, I would tell myself, I'm the Energizer Bunny. I'm the Energizer Bunny. And it kind of made me laugh, but it also fed myself that I can go all day. And then, moving your body up and down and getting stronger with your body language sends energy. Movement creates energy. Or, if I'm on a team, then I'm encouraging my teammates. That creates energy. Or giving a fist bump or a high five to my doubles partner. So in a given moment, if you need to increase that energy, you can do that through what you're saying and your body actions. Now, if you're all over the place and you need to calm down, we do that by the same things, except I might do something of deep breathing instead of moving my body around. And I'm going to think some calming, just getting my blood pressure down a little bit, some calming thoughts that do that. So very impactful to know that you can create the energy you need at a given moment. So it took me a few minutes to run through Brave, but it gives you an idea of you're encompassing your talk, your walk, and visualization, and having those three elements to your mental warm-up. And if you don't have one, I challenge you today, put one together, start practicing it when you show up for a lesson, a clinic, encouraging your clients and your players to do the same. Studies have shown that athletes in all sports that have a mental warm-up start 25% faster and stronger. And the thing I like about the BRAVE acronym that I gave you is that it's also a great reset button. So if I'm struggling and had a bad game, I can just take a second, deep breathe, blow out my frustration, breathe in the confidence, check in with my body language and my talk, saying I am, visualize what I want to happen next, and then get my energy where it needs to be. So again, it's a great mental warm up and a great reset or to start a new set as well. So I have given you just tidbits here and there of my 4 steps of confidence that if we work at every day, then we can develop a strong foundation of confidence and we can teach others of how to do that as well. And I put together a monthly confidence calendar just to kind of illustrate the point that I'm making. Confidence is based on what you do, say, and think every day. And the confidence calendar just gives you a tidbit, a suggestion, an activity, a quote to focus on that day. I put it out every month. If you're interested in signing up for it, you can go to my website, r2lc.com, scroll down the bottom and sign up for it. It's free. It's just a resource I put out there because I want to help others get off of that confidence roller coaster that I was on when I was an athlete. And the last thing that I would like to say about confidence as far as us teaching and coaching athletes, I made this mistake early on and frequently. And I would tell my players, hey, be confident. And what I recognized and realized after talking to them and researching is that only created more anxiety or more frustration. Because it's not like your player, your client isn't trying to be confident. And so we tell them to be confident. It just makes it worse. So it's trying to give them one tip that will help them be confident. So instead of be confident, hey, get your body language up. Or P square, positive or productive comments. So trying to say something more specific that will help their confidence instead of just be confident. If you have any questions or would like to follow me or my social media, I love when people reach out, ask questions. My why of why I do my job is to help make a difference and encourage others, just as Bill did for me many years ago. So please feel free to reach out and follow me. And I appreciate everyone being here today. And here's to all of us being as confident as we can.
Wow. Thanks, Tami. That was awesome. Now, if anybody has questions, you can type them in. We got just a few minutes that we can still have Tami while we on with us. We'll stop in about 5 minutes for sure. But let's see. What did MJ type in? Review 11%, please.
I'm glad you caught that. I recognized I'd forgotten that later on, but 11% was under the self-talk, and 11% is studies show that athletes that are positive or productive with their self-talk have an 11% better success rate and do better.
That's good. We have a lot of people saying thanks. Awesome, Tami. They're fired up. So you're getting some great reviews already. So
confidence is a game changer. It has changed my life. So any way I can help anyone with their confidence or with their clients, please feel free to reach out.
I will ask you, and you put it as first things first, but is what you started off with probably if somebody's got to get started on this, that's the first place to start.
Self-talk, by far. That influences our body language. It influences the images we see. So definitely. First things first is your self-talk.
Perfect. Let's see. We have, let me see what's in the Q&A here. What do you say to the player in the middle of a meltdown on court? That's Bill Riddle. He says, just asking for a friend. Which means,
first of all, you got to be proactive and know how to push that player's button. Some players need to be challenged. Some need that pat on the back. But the most important thing is to be able to shift their mind to what they need to do on that next point. And if we can stay in the moment, that's where we're going to have the most success. Negative emotions come from focusing on the past or worried about the future. So finding a way, I love acronyms, but the acronym I use for that with working with my clients is WIN. What's important now? And so just getting them, forget what's happened, forget what's ahead. What do you need to do on this one point right here? Doesn't always help, but it gives them a lot better chance of getting out of their head and trying to catch that before they really get in a meltdown.
Awesome. Thanks. Here's another question. Working with my 6 to 9-year-olds, I have a really difficult time keeping them confident during lessons. Would you recommend a journal for them or the 5-1 method? They get so down when they can't get their stroke right.
Definitely the 5-1 method, and making sure you're giving them that feedback, but they need to be able to recognize what they're doing well themselves. So maybe even stopping during a drill. Hey, somebody give me a positive. And I think especially with younger generations, they're so result oriented. And if that ball didn't go in, it's bad, even though their stroke may have been horrible in getting the ball in. So it's really getting them to start seeing what they are doing well that's not based off results. And I should have said that. The 5 ones cannot be I want a match or anything result based. It has to be you and your game that you did that will then allow you to get the result you want. Last thing I'll add to that, I often have little kids wear a rubber band. I do this with college athletes as well. And when they have a negative thought, they have to lightly pop it just to teach them to focus to positive or productive.
Okay, so you like that method better than the player that wants to smack themselves in the leg with their racket?
Exactly.
I like it. All right, I think that's on our questions. We're all silently clapping for you, Tami. This was awesome. Would you just, as we go out, and I'm going to end this, and then everybody will have to log back into the next talk. Would you please hold the book up? I see one in the back. Would you just hold the book up? That
I have Confident Athlete, and This Is Good. So this is based off my journey telling the African folktale to a team and all of the adversity, how to overcome adversity. And then Confident Athlete, and that goes more in depth of the 4 steps that I just went through.